All right. All right, here we are. Oh, man. Guys, I just want to say hello. God bless you guys. Hopefully you're doing good on this Saturday morning. Yes, this is live. And here with Brother Alfonso, as you guys know. And also, Mikey.
Hey.
With the K.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, with the K.
I appreciate you, Pastor.
Whoa. Okay.
I appreciate you, Pastor, and I appreciate you, Brother Alfonso.
Thank you for taking the drive.
Man, it's been a couple years.
It has. Time flies.
Yeah.
Time flies.
If somebody here doesn't know who you are,
Yeah.
They would best know you on my channel. They would best know you as the announcer at the Cholo Trucker and Gunner fight.
That's right.
The guy in the tux.
The guy in the tux that sweated through the whole tux.
With the burn.
The burn. So what he's talking about is I wiped my forehead so much from sweat that it did like an Indian burn on my forehead.
It was seriously really hot.
It looked hot even when you were
About 102. I think it was about 102.
We were the only ones in a full suit.
Wow.
It was hot.
We were
Yeah.
full suit.
But at least I was sitting. You were
Yes.
in the action.
I was in the action. I ended up DPing almost the thing because I think Paul from LA Times, he underestimated the talents that I had. He didn't know I was already in audio, visuals, and everything else.
Yeah.
Shout out to Paul from LA Times.
So what I'm gonna, man, Paul was here on opening day. You didn't realize we just opened a month ago.
No.
Yeah. So Paul was here and Cholo Trucker were here.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
my brother, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to Cholo Trucker.
Yeah,
That's
they came
another
up all the
brother
way
of
up
mine.
here and supported, and it was great. And we sat here, and basically baptized this podcast room with Paul and Cholo Trucker. Me and my wife did a couple, little things here, but
Yeah.
I consider that because it was grand opening day, and then bam.
That's right.
And Alfonso, you sat in on that too.
Yep.
That's right. That's right.
But real quick, guys, I decided to split this into two different segments. This first segment is going to be a little bit more about who Mikey is. And the second segment is going to the House of Rest YouTube channel, where we're going to talk about the Bible. We're going to talk about God and all that. And so as soon as we're done with this live, it's going to be like maybe a 10-minute intermission, bam, and then we're going to go live on the House of Rest. Is that good?
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's more than good. Hit the like, gente.
Yeah. So number one, I do want to say that since then, I've seen you on your channel, and you've changed things around and whatnot. We're going to talk about that. But my first time meeting you in person was at the fight.
Yes.
You kind of been a mystery man, and just reveal a little bit about yourself here and there as your channel continues to grow, And I remember subscribing to your channel before the fight when I found out you were going to be participating, and that's when I was like, who is this guy? And I kind of checked it out. But, before we go into that, also want to shout out to your wife who's sitting in here.
Yes.
Yes. My wife, I see that they hit it off.
Already, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And that's always good, But I just want to, what is, where are you from?
Sure. So let's go ahead and start there. So born and raised, and soy pocho. So I'm a pocho. I was born right here. My parents, I'm first generation Mexican American. My parents, both of them were born in Mexico. So my dad's from Michoacan and my mom's from Jalisco. Okay. And so I'm born in Salinas.
Okay.
I was born in Salinas, 1981. I've been there all my life.
Yeah.
And so soy pocho. So from Salinas all of my entire life until now. I still reside there. So I'm still there.
And what, like for instance, myself, see, I know it's called the salad bowl. I grew up on a ranch.
Okay.
Out in Tracy, and so were you in town? Were you out of town? What was your childhood?
Sure, no problem. So, you know what? I have a members only section on my channel, and that's really where I tell like the deep intricate details, like what I'm gonna say right here.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in East Salinas. So actually, where I grew up, it was like in the heart of like a gang war zone. That's where I grew up. I grew up in an alley called I was born in the first house that we had was in Meyer Court. And so Meyer Court, it's what's crazy about Meyer Court is there's 3 gangs literally about 20, 30 yards away from each other. So I'm right behind East Market. When I walk out, there's Hebron Street, and that's another gang, and then to the right is Fremont Street. So I was born right in the heart of East Salinas. So as far as I could remember being a little chavalito, there was always sirens at nighttime. There was always people breaking in houses. There was always people leaning up against the wall. O sea, I just saw cholo since I was a little one. So I grew up not in the rural part of Salinas, but I grew up in the Alisal district in the 93905. That's East Salinas, which I actually compare East Salinas a lot to East Los Angeles. Why? Because there's a lot of culture there. I was just telling Brother Alfonso right here, they just repainted all the bridges in Salinas to murals. They just repainted over the murals and put new ones, and they're 100% all farm workers. Because Salinas is very rich in agricultural history. You had mentioned salad bowl. Yes, we export over 50% of the nation's lettuce. And we also have we're the main the cities nearby also are the main exporters of each their own produce. So Gilroy garlic, Castroville artichoke, onions, tomatoes, all of that. That's why Salinas has at least 6 or 8 major headquarters for Dole, Fresh Express, Bud, Tanamora and Anto, Foxy Lettuce, and I'm probably missing like 3. So all you see on all the sides of the roads son files. It's a beautiful sight.
Yeah. No, I mean I'm not familiar with Salinas. I've passed through a lot of times on my way to Monterey. In my younger years, used to sell a lot of music, so I'd go to the mall, and then there was a record store. I can't remember the name of it right now, but they
Sam Goody's.
No, but there was an independent store back then that would buy a ton of my stuff.
Music Zone.
That sounds familiar.
Okay.
Is that
I'm just throwing them out there. Yeah, these are stores that were very popular. That everyone crowded to get CDs back when CDs were what people bought.
But other than that, I was never really familiar. Just knew a handful of people from there.
Medium-sized city. About 160,000 is the population. I mean, that's just who's accounted for. Not everyone fills out the census. We know that, but the majority are farm workers. So most of the hotels in East Salinas, you'll just see nothing but trucks, and they're all rented out to farm labor.
I got a question.
Go ahead, my brother.
So growing up in Salinas, right? Like, was your first language Spanish and English? And the second question would be like, I know you grew up in a gang, very rooted city. Did you realize that was a lifestyle that was happening around you? Was that normal to you, or did you realize later on when you watched the movie how that gang life was really going on in other places, or was it just a Salinas thing that, this is normal for me to worry about that block, this block, and that block?
So I spoke Spanish first. I spoke Spanish. No solté la lengua until about 2nd grade. And my mom, it's funny because my wife asked my mom how she decided to choose to put me in English speaking classes. And my mom just told the truth. She goes, well, they didn't give me a choice. They enrolled me in a school, and they put me, so the majority of the kids that I went to were güeros, you know what I mean? Blonde hair and blue eyes. Same here, yeah. So I ended up just, in about 2 or 3 years into school, I just dominated English, but Spanish is my first language. And then as far as the second question, say it again.
Say it was like growing up in Salinas. There was a lot going on in Salinas with the gang culture out there.
Okay.
Did you realize that that's what it was when you were growing up, or did that seem normal? or when you watched the movie like Colors, or did you watch a movie to say, you know what? My city's not really like any other city. It's a little bit more advanced in what's going on out here.
I mean, when you're growing up and you're in those ages, just un chavalito, you don't think that far ahead. You don't really try to dissect and delve into what's really going on in my environment. I would just go from my house to the East Market liquor store, which is literally just a couple yards away, and there see the guys, playing Street Fighter, the first Street Fighter or whatever, and they had hairnets, white shirts, and all that. I remember one instance that they stole my bike. And I was so mad. I was crying. I went home crying and sad. And in the middle, like at 8, 9 o'clock at night, there was a knock on the door. And we would never answer the door at nighttime because there's a lot of shooting. There was just a lot of gang violence. And we're talking about in the 80s. And so I knew the guy because his name was Psycho. I don't even know if he's still around or whatever, but I just knew him, right? He was just an older guy, right? And I peeked through. My dad said, "No abres la puerta." And I looked through the curtains, and it was him. I seen him. I just know he always had that beanie really low with the knot in the back of the beanie. You know, I guess that's how it was back then. I said, "Oh, that's Psycho." I said, "Yo sé quién es." He brought back my bike. Wow. He brought back my bike. He saw 3 guys at Cesar Chavez Park walking at nighttime. Yeah. They got into a confrontation because they were from a rival neighborhood, and they just took the bike like, oh, chalk it up as a loss. I guess they just took their bike after they got into the fight, and then and then he realized that was my yours. Bike, and then he knocked on my door and gave it back to me. To me, it was all normal. I didn't think anything of it. I just said, these are the guys, they're in the neighborhood, and I guess you're going to gravitate to who you are around.
How old are you?
Yeah, I'm 42.
Okay.
I'm 42. I'm born in 81.
Yeah. I was
42, right, honey? Am I 42? Okay. I had to ask. Yeah. My memory. I know I'm 42.
I was born in 72.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was born in 80.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1980.
Yeah. So just, I mean, being expuesto as a little chavalito, I mean, there's just generations of culture, of gang culture, and that's what easily lured me. Mm-hmm. And then sooner or later, it was just time for me to take that step and make that commitment, and that's what I ended up doing.
I got a question too. So growing up, like, was your mom and dad? What kind of work was around, or what kind of work was provided for people? Like, was there warehouse work? Was there strictly field work out there?
Yeah.
Was it seasonal that people worked out there? How was the life out there in Salinas?
Yeah, so as far as work goes, there was a lot of ag work always available, but there was a huge sugar plant in Castroville that employed a lot of people. It was a huge sugar plant in Castroville. And so my mother stayed consistently working, not my father. My father was he was very unique in his personality. You know what I mean? One, I gotta just keep it real. He wasn't on top of being the best provider. And then later on, he had his own run-ins with the law. When I became a teenager, I would see him go away 2 years at a time, 3 years at a time. The longest he ever did was 5 or 6 years at a time. So he had his own old run-ins with the law. My father was never a gang member. He was just an old school Mexicano. Yeah. So he would carry firearms, but without permits. Yeah. But back then, you could purchase them. They would just purchase some. You saw the little tag on the revolver.
It was a different time.
You gave him $300 or whatever it was worth, and he had them. And so he kept getting. It was an old school Mexico thing. Because where he was from in Cualcomán, Michoacán, which is a huge, now I have a cousin that he ended up doing 13 and they deported him over there. He told me, primo, don't even visit over here. It's not even cool. It's just cartel all over the place in Michoacán.
Is that where your family's from, Cualcomán?
That's my dad's side.
Yeah, my grandma's actually from there.
He's Cualcomán. Next door is Tierra Caliente. Wow. That's where he's from. My mom's from San Jose de Gracia, Jalisco. Yeah. So, I remember one instance when I was in middle school. I was just in 7th grade. Still borderline innocent. You're coming out of the innocent stage. Was gonna stay at a basketball game, and I felt a little bit bad about this because I felt like I should have called home and told my father, you know what, don't come and pick me up. I'm gonna hang out and be at a basketball game. But he came instead. My dad parked his car in the red fire lane right in front of the steps of the school, next to police, blocking buses and everything, and didn't care about it. Yeah. He just got down and he was looking for me. And next thing you know, he was just leaning on a pillar. He just leaned on the pillar doing what he does. And I didn't know until after the fact. Someone told me what happened was, the police officer came up to him. He only speaks Spanish, but again, a macho Mexican Michoacano man who doesn't like being talked to, especially if he feels talked down on. When the police officer came up to him and told him, hey, you need to move your car. You know what he told him? He goes, you move your car. Mm-hmm. So he just got into it there, and he had a loaded 45 under the front seat. And I remember, I'm not gonna lie, I remember tearing up, man. Yeah. I remember I'm at the basketball game, and everyone, there's a lot of alpha males in Salinas, but let's just keep it real, When you're a chavalito and you're around your own fellas and boys like that, they're like, man, just leave him alone. His dad just got arrested and stuff like that. And I don't think I saw him for like another 2 or 3 years. So I was pretty much growing up right there. I think my mom ended up having a complex to not discipline me because she felt that she had failed because of my father, who kept getting arrested and getting in trouble with the law.
You know, you had mentioned, you know, in some of your videos that you ended up doing some time and this and that, and there's a lot of similarities because for me, I've always been a reader. I've always considered myself a pretty intelligent person, you know, and you seem to be the same way. And so how do people like ourselves end up in prison? You know what I mean? Because a lot of times people say, "Man, you knew better. You're not a knucklehead. This ain't who you are."
Right.
I would hear that a lot. You know, and I don't know if it was because maybe the way I articulate myself or whatever reason. I used to hear that. Did you ever hear that? And you did do time.
Right, I did. Yes.
So
I did. Yeah. So that's true. That's true. You know, I speak on my channel, you know, and I recently rebranded the channel. I speak on my channel a lot about I don't believe in having a victim mentality.
Yeah.
I believe it did come down to choices, but it seemed like the cards that we got dealt only were going to lead to a couple places, which was going to be the penitentiary or it was going to be the graveyard. And that's all it was. And to me, that was normal. Everyone I was hanging around as a teenager after I got initiated in the gang, everyone I hung around was a fugitive.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, everyone right now has cell phones. Back then, we all had scanners. You know what I mean? And a different color scanner.
Radio Shack?
We had Radio Shack, and then you buy the book. You have to buy the book and program the code.
Yeah.
And when they would hit the house, it's funny because then the PD would hear their own radio transmissions and they're getting pissed.
Yeah.
They're like, "You're hearing us, cabrón."
I remember I had it looked like a walkie-talkie.
It was a walkie-talkie
Carried it
Radio
around.
Shack, and then you'd have to buy the book with the codes and stuff like that. So everyone was pretty much a fugitive. I thought it was pretty much normal. But as far as we didn't grow
of the environment.
A product of the environment, yes, in so much as, well, we didn't have any mentors at all.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really talk about a lot on my channel is having mentors. I don't think opening up more rec centers in the city is going to do it. I think we need to go to what the Bible says, is that we got to turn the hearts of the sons back to the fathers.
Yeah.
But it takes people like me, you, and Alfonso going back into the neighborhood because they lend an ear to that.
Yeah.
I have a once a month meeting at the juvenile hall and a once a month meeting at the camp. They closed down the YA, so there's still camps though. And I always talk to them about the same similar things. They come to my meeting instead of, and I'm not trying to knock anyone, instead of the 90-year-old man with the guitar and the dog. Why? Because I think they can relate more to someone that's been there. You know, and and when they closed down the YAs, they brought all those youngsters down from the YAs, and it was tough for like a month or two. I mean, there was a lot of fights. There was a lot of black guys and stuff like that. I'm glad they closed down the youth authorities in this aspect. I'm not one of these guys that says more schools, no prisons, or close down all the prisons, because that's not realistic.
Yeah.
The buses keep pulling up every single week. I mean, what are you gonna do? You have to house them somewhere. You know what I mean? But I believe that if they are given more opportunities and were mentored correctly, they can make the right choices. But I didn't grow up in West Beverly, you know what I mean? So I wish I would have come back and changed the clock, and then I would have been to the prom and limos and all that.
Yeah.
But my children, thankfully, when I was incarcerated, I told the Lord, put it all on me. Put it all on me. Don't let my sins fall on my children. Because one of my biggest fears was that I would have to see my life again reenacted through one of my children.
Yeah, that's one of any father's nightmare is to see that, you know. So I remember seeing your channel for the first time.
Yes.
And I've seen it grow as channels do. You know, every channel. You know, like you're just barely in the beginning stage of Si Se Puede channel.
That's my brother right there. That's my brother.
And it's gonna develop. It just comes naturally because you start getting used to it, and then you start getting ideas. You're like, well, if I could do this, then I could do this, and you know, and it starts expanding.
Evolving.
But I remember the first time I saw your channel, I had a sense that you were still finding your niche.
Oh yeah.
You know, because
true.
I remember, honestly, I remember thinking like, what's this channel about? You know what I mean? Like Selena's Report, and I was like, what's this about? I can see now that you're kind of like,
honing
that
in.
Focus is coming in tighter, you know, but I think just the fact though is, like you said, the lack of mentors. I remember when I was a kid, I forgot what grade, but they said write a history report on your favorite person in history. I got an F because mine was on Pancho Villa. You know, because I remember the teacher gave me an F. I said, why do I have an F? Said, I told you to write about a hero. This is a bandit. You know, and that was kind of my first introduction into just the realities of just the way it is.
Right.
And it confused me because I remember growing up and my dad would teach me about Pancho Villa and he would stand for the people and this and that. Now, mind you, obviously it's not that simple. I mean, when we really truly look at history, he was a rough man.
Right.
It is what it is. But nevertheless, to tell a child, because who else did I have?
Right.
You know, and so I like the fact that, for instance, your channel, Alfonso's channel, you know, these channels. That's why I don't agree with any arguing between channels, because this is a big world. Because the fact is this, is that what we are creating is because YouTube, nobody watches TV anymore.
Nobody does.
You know, I was in Oceanside this week, and I'm at the hotel, and I'm like, am I watching a show or am I watching commercials? You know? And for people, these young people have the opportunity to go on and see people like themselves doing shows like this. I wish I would have had this.
Right. Right.
You know, but instead,
Some guidance.
we had some, you know, some dude driving IROC. That was the one I looked up to.
Right.
You know, and the one in a motor with the Ninja motorcycle, and I know what they're doing, you know, and I want to be like them, and then dude gets out of prison, and everybody acts like the king just got out, and just that's all we had, you know.
True.
So obviously that gets instilled in us, you know, and
I saw that a lot.
So what made you start your channel?
Sure, no problem. So what made me start my channel was, you know what, I started following a couple. I just saw YouTubing as something as a hobby.
Yeah.
And you're right. You know, it takes a while to get into a mojo and really, you know, find yourself. I guess you're gonna end up finding yourself when you keep staring at yourself recording videos.
Yeah.
Just keep staring at yourself recording videos, and sooner or later you're gonna find yourself. So if someone were to ask me, you know, who are you, Mikey? You know, is it a positive or a negative channel? Well, that's up to you. Everyone has their own perception. Me, I was a former gang member, now turned family man, businessman.
Yeah.
And that's what I spend my time on is with the youngsters. I've had that meeting in the juvenile hall in the camp now coming up on 10 years. To me, it was just my little small grain of salt that I could do to give back to the community, the same community that I was there terrorizing, the same community that when I went in front on my second term, when I went in front of the judge, the district attorney, she called me the poster boy for gangs. I was like, man, I could be off the highway, I guess. They could put my photo off the highway and be like, see that? That's why we have PD, for people like him, or something like that. And I wanted, with all my heart, to prove her wrong. Yeah. And I ended up proving her wrong. But that was all God. Go ahead.
Can I say something? I think one thing that's important about the new branding of your channel and the example you're setting, like God, family, and cultura. These are principles, you know, that you know, when you make a sermon or when you preach, you know, we're in church right now. We come from this background, right? We do bullet points, and these are perfect things to always go back to and say, God, family, cultura. Oh, yeah. Like in my channel, it's inspire, encourage, and empower. So these are things that we have to move inside of and also promote, man, because it's easy to have a channel and conversation, but if we're not leading and there's no youth behind us, there is no movement, and there is really nothing going on but conversation. So what you're doing, man, with the God, cultura, and familia, I love that stuff, man. I think it's very important. I think that one shouldn't be weighed out more than the other. I think there should be always a balance between that, and it'll be more effective for the community.
I've had a lot of positive feedback because I'm still in the community every single day. I haven't gone anywhere, but now I'm in there doing the good and positive. I see a lot of youngsters all the time, right? Yeah. I'm just not one of those ones that says, look, I'm in the neighborhood, or look, and I'm like that. I feel a little bit like that wouldn't be my character. But I do I get a lot of positive feedback. Keep it up. I got people sticking their heads out of UPS cars and FedEx. Hey, Mikey, or the guy In-N-Out Burger or Home Depot. Hey, Mikey, keep it up. So I guess the Salinas Report, when I started it, was a little bit just all over the place. Let's just keep it all over the place.
What was your main focus in the beginning, or what did you
Salinas
think?
Report?
What did you think was your main focus?
Having fun. Absolutely having fun. My wife knows we have multiple businesses. We try to balance out work and life, and it was just whatever fun time I had. I sold all my lowriders. I don't have no more lowriders. I used to work on those for days. I sold the last one. It was 2 collectors out of Hayward, 2 brothers. They were racing too. As soon as I put it on offer up, they came and picked up Donna. Donna was my last lowrider. She was a 93 Fleetwood Brougham, and she was a show winner. So I had no more hobbies, anything. And you find out that, well, I mean, guys kind of like hobby. You know, I'm not that much into sports. I talk about and follow sports a lot. All I listen to is sports radio, but I had no hobbies. So to me in the beginning, YouTube was just, hey, let's have fun. Let's jump on here and just shoot it. You know, that's what it was. Yeah. My mother passed away last June. When my mother passed away last June, I guess I felt bad. I felt like I was so occupied with things. That's what I felt like. I didn't slow down and go and visit my almost 90-year-old mother, and things occupied me to the point where I really analyzed myself and said, you know what I'm gonna do is, and my wife was a huge part of this idea with the whole rebranding, is I'm gonna do something that's gonna make my parents proud, their parents proud, and their parents proud, right? Because I believe in, they're still alive. O sea, the spiritual. I know the spiritual is way more real than the physical realm. I said, I'm going to do something that's going to make them proud, rebrand the channel, and God is the one that gave me the 3 pillars. He's the one that gave them to me. Dios, familia, y cultura. And these are going to be the center focuses. Not that I don't have fun. Not that every once, I know Pastor David said, I don't like channels that bump heads. I know every once in a while, not that I don't bump heads every once in a while. I got to react when they mention my name sometimes. I don't have to, but sometimes. But I feel like it's more focused now. And I like opening up topics on a world level, on a national level, on a state level.
I do see that as more focused, and that's what I was getting to, is I do like it. I do like it, and I see you going in the same direction. Little different flavor, but in the same direction. Because is without God, without family, what do we have?
Exactly.
And like I don't over. How do I say it?
Emphasize?
Like overemphasize the culture thing, because I know who I am.
Yeah.
I'm proud of who I am. At the same time, I don't overdo it to the point of alienating anybody else, because being a pastor, I remember when I first got out, they're like, oh, you can go back to prison. I said, you think I can only preach to prisoners?
Come on,
And then it's like, I remember a few times in the beginning, people would be like, oh, are you like one of those cholo churches? Like everybody wants to put you in a box, and I'm like,
put a label on you.
What, I can't preach the gospel to anybody else?
Come on now.
What is that? So So I do love my culture. I do embrace my culture. I understand it, love it, read about it, learned about it, but at the same time, just a little bit more generalized, because I think our culture is so beautiful that we should share it to everybody.
And I believe that there's a loss of identity going on all over the place. I mean, if you don't...
Well, this is why the youth are acting the way they do.
Exactly. And painting their hair 10 different colors, and they're saying, I'm this and I'm that, because there's a lack of identity. So the thing that I picked up is not something new. It's something that's already been established for a lot of decades, is that identity, and it is Chicanismo. But like you said, it's true. Someone was commenting on my live last night, someone said Mexican Nazis or something like that, and I said, well, wait a second. I said, true, there could be anyone from any country that is just all in for their race and their country, but they have a prejudice against. That's wrong. And what you were talking about, being labeled and being in a box, after I went to prison for the second time, I knew I came out with the mindset that there was nothing I wasn't going to be able to accomplish. Right now, I'm in real estate, right? In my 1 hour radius where I sell real estate, there's a lot of homes that are 7 digits, $1 million home, $4 million homes, etc. Right? And every real estate agent tends to work within a 1 hour radius, right? And so I was speaking in the office to some other realtors in the office, and they're like, man, maybe one day I'll make it out to Carmel and Pebble Beach. And I said, well, why wait for one day? Why not now? I was already in the worst. I was in a hole behind a hole inside of a hole. And I said, if I can make it out of here, there is no limits on what I could do. And I go over there and I'm very proud, and I speak very professional, and I get the job done. That's what they want. I'm not trying to be friends with anyone. I'm just a professional, and I know my craft really, really well. So all that, trying to put yourself in a box, no, definitely not. And I don't want people to get it twisted with Chicano too. that we're thinking that we're some kind of superior race.
Yeah.
Or if you're not Chicano, no. I'm saying be proud of who you are. If you have more than one culture, then you have more to be proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you can be proud of multiple cultures, but you be you and instill that in your children. If not, they will wander off and maybe do what I did and find the fellas on the corner.
I mean, is that not the beauty of people traveling the world, to be able to see different cultures? Can you imagine? Because right now, like when my wife and I go somewhere, we just took Highway 1 all the way back from Oceanside.
Beautiful drive.
I don't look for the restaurants that are here. I want to find a restaurant that is there. You know, someplace that is part of that culture, that neighborhood, that community or whatnot.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You know, like same thing with coffee shops. I mean, if we're in a hurry, we're gonna grab Starbucks or whatever. But I'm like, let's find a local coffee shop. Mm-hmm. You know, because that's the whole thing. And can you imagine if everybody just said, you know what, let's wipe out culture? So you went to France?
Yeah, I went to
Can you
France.
imagine going to France and everything was just the same as here? You know, like
And I can share something about France that really blew me away. When I went out there, the two races that exist out there, there's a lot of like Anglo people and black people. And I seen the way they would treat each other, man. And I felt like racism, yeah, it exists in the world, but it wasn't a France issue. It was an American issue, you know, because I was in the subways in France and I would see a white man get up for a black person, and the respect they had for each other as French people was. I was just observing and I was like, wow, look at that. Look, they didn't see each other as black or white. They seen each other as French,
right?
You know, and I think that here in America, one time I heard this guy say on the internet, like, prisons in France are different than prisons in California because prisons in France, they all look alike, and here we all don't look alike. So there's more conflict and more issues going on in America. But the thing about France, to go back to that, was I really seen that racism is an American issue, bro. It was. I'm not saying that racism don't exist in the world, but what I seen in France, it wasn't what I see here. It was something different, man, and classy French. I can't call them African French people, like African American, but it was a whole different. It was a beautiful experience, man.
I have a little bit of different take on that. I think that there's always going to be racism, no matter what. But I've experienced real racism as a kid, and what people are crying about now ain't nothing like what it was. You know, I remember when I was a kid. I remember in 4th grade, I went to predominantly white school. I remember these same kids that I played with in kindergarten, first grade, 2nd grade. By the 4th grade, I remember one time I came out of the bathroom. They surrounded me, called me beaner, spit sunflower seeds at me. I remember my brother had a lowrider, and these cowboys were just completely just making fun of the lowrider, this and that. I mean, there was true racism. I remember cops pulling me over, you know, and calling me derogatory names.
Yeah.
So to me, that was racism. And I'm just like, what's happening today is a little exaggerated. Now, of course,
Isolated incidents.
there's isolated incidents, but for me, it's nothing like it was in the 70s and 80s.
But I think it has something to do with growing up in the Central Valley, because these bigger cities don't understand that these farmers and these lands are owned by certain type of people. And even when I was in school, I was in 8th grade. I'm not going to say the school, but I was an honor roll, man. I had honor roll. I was headed on the right track, and I'll never forget. In 8th grade, I went to my teacher's desk, and he goes, "Go back where you came from." And I looked at him, and I was like, "I know what you mean, bro." And it cut me, bro. It cut me, and it did something to me that expression he did to me, bro. And when I got to 9th grade, things started changing within myself. But I think in the Central Valley, people don't understand the racism growing up in the 80s and 90s.
It was different.
It was different, man. It wasn't like a lot of different races here, you know. It was just a few Mexicans and but I experienced
it was not a melting pot in the valley. You were either going to be, you know, white or Chicano, Latino, whatever you choose to call. And there was like a sprinkle of blacks.
Right.
At least where I grew up, you know.
Same.
It wasn't until prison that I had a guy that was Jewish, and I had another guy that was black, and you know, then I was just like, whoa, what is this? I wasn't used to that. I wasn't accustomed to that.
Right.
And but being away for 6 years, I got used to being around around it, you know.
Broke down those barriers.
It broke down the
walls.
barriers
Yeah.
because in my younger years, I was very racist toward whites. A lot, you know what I mean? And I was probably half racist to my own people, obviously, because I hated anybody from anywhere from Northern California, you know, and then even then, and within Tracy, I hated people that weren't from my side, you know, just full of hate.
Right.
You know, and full
Right.
of hate, you know, but...
And if you weren't racist, you might turn into one if you land inside one of the California prisons.
Well, the most segregated places right now is prison and church.
There you go. So
Where
I
else
was
are
going
you
to
gonna see
say,
segregation at?
when I turned 18, I didn't grow up with none of that. I guess
Yeah.
because Salinas was predominantly Mexican.
Yeah.
And so at one point, it was predominantly Gabacho and white, but
Yeah.
then the demographic turned heavy into the Mexican demographic because it just was, we were the ag centered. I
Yeah.
mean, we had a UFW headquarters. It was just ag everywhere.
Same like here.
And then all of a sudden, all the güeros moved out of the Alisal.
To Monterey?
They went to the suburbs. They went to the south side.
Oh,
they went
okay.
to other sides of Salinas and said, you know what, let's just go over here. You know what I mean? Because over here, obviously, con las bandas every noche and, you know, and going. So that's how I didn't experience that until I turned 18. When I
Yeah.
turned 18 and I stepped inside the county jail for the first time, then I realized it was about race. I already knew the gang element of it
Yeah.
because in California prisons, it's gangland. It's like the History Channel gangland. You're not just gonna go inside a California prison and say, I run with nobody. That's not gonna happen. Okay, you're gonna have to fall in line. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how influential you are. I don't care how powerful you are on the streets. You're gonna have to join a gang to get inside a California prison. If not, well, then you're just gonna have to go to either a hospital or a PC up or something.
Yeah. So, what built up to the point of the fight? In case some of you that aren't watching, in case you just tuned in right now, this is how me and Mikey met. Is the Gunner and Cholo Trucker fight?
Yes.
And it was going to be a pay-per-view, and it was built up and all this, and you were going to be
Ring announcing.
ring announcing, and that's when I subscribed to you. I'm like, who is this guy? And then you were jumping on some of the
Other
group
channels.
the group channels and whatnot, and then I met you in person, and that's kind of because somebody had asked who's talking, you know. So
Right.
that's kind of the rundown. You have your own YouTube channel. It is now called Chicano Tube.
Yep.
Right. So make sure you subscribe. He has really good content, and we have Alfonso here who has Si Se Puede YouTube
That's right.
channel.
It's my brother.
And just to kind of in case somebody
Yeah.
jumped in.
Leading up to the fight, you said?
Yeah, what built up to the fight and,
Yeah.
and what made you get involved?
Sure.
What happened there?
So I got into boxing in about 2012. And my wife knows this. What ended up happening was I have boys, right? And I ended up just ordering a pair of boxing gloves and headgear. And we lived in an apartment complex, and there was a
Yeah.
grassy area. And I used to want my boys to fight everyone else. So I would get my boys to fight the other. I know that's bad, huh? That's bad. Now that I think about it, even cuando éramos cholos también, we would do the same thing. We would groom our kids to fight. That was bad. Huh? I should have let that tendency go because I was already saved at that point. But anyways, so I had them all fighting. So next thing you know, I just joined a boxing gym, and I would DJ. So usually the DJs in boxing fights, they would ask them out of courtesy if they would announce the fighters. Right? Okay, this one fighting. And then at me announcing it, I got so many compliments like, oh, you have a voice. Tienes voz de locutor. You have a voice of you could be a radio disc jockey personality. And one time, just for kicks, I said, you know what? I want to ring announce. Just for kicks, I want to ring announce. I ended up renting a tuxedo. Shout out to Medina's Bridal on East Dallas South. Shout out to her. I ended up renting a tuxedo. And I must have hit an entrance. I must have hit a main event. I'm talking about fighting out of Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. I must have hit it so good that I said it was another talent. I was just discovering my talents. And then I got into ring announcing. That fight got announced on YouTube.
Yeah.
That took a lot of different elements and promotional. People were talking about it in a lot of different ways, but it was really for charity. That was the whole thing of it. I know they were talking about unity. That was after the fact. I know they were talking about North and South. That was after. All that stuff was just side elements to really being a fight for charity. That's all it was. 100% was going to go to charity. And so someone mentioned my name either to Big Joe or to Paul from LA Times. One of the two, they contacted me and said, would you like to be involved? Sure, no problem. I'm actually being considered right now for another YouTube fight with the other one, 600 versus Cartoon. These other two YouTubers, right? They're anyways, they're considering me as being the ring announcer. So that's how I got involved in the fight. I didn't know anybody, not one person in the entire building, except you by face, right? Because I had the CD. So of course I knew Pastor David Rocha, because that CD was in every car in Salinas. So I knew you by face, and then Tony A. And shout out to Tony. And you were just recently on Tony A's channel. Man, shout out to Tony A for reaching 100,000 subscribers. He's doing the most good. He's really doing the most good. And so I didn't know anyone. And then when I got there, I'm kind of one of those persons that I just can't be standing around if I know I have something to give. So I saw audio needed work. I saw lighting needed work. I saw the camera guy was a comedian. His name was Concrete. And he blew up already. I mean, he's got hundreds of thousands of followers now on IG. Back then, he didn't. And the camera footage was all shaky. And I was like, I wish I can cut myself into 4 people. But I can't. And you saw me. I ended up DPing the whole thing. So that's how I got involved, ring announcing in that fight. And I do believe there was something positive that came out of that fight. One, there was charity. There was a girl from Brown University that got a donation. Cholo Trucker, right, his charity that was for sexually abused children, got that money. So that was.
And he took money to the church.
And he took money.
Live.
He split it, right? I guess he split it. Yeah, exactly. He told me he wanted to give more to one, but it was hard to get a hold of their execs. And he said, well, he doesn't want to put all in on one place if it's going to disappear somewhere and he doesn't know how to trace it. And so that was all my involvement in that. And I got more YouTube fights coming up.
I'm glad that I was a small part of that fight. I was able to pray that fight in.
Yes.
You know, and get to meet some great people, and some of them have been friends since. You know, this cup, Cholo Trucker gave it to me. You know what I mean? Been really good friends with him, and pretty much I'm still friendly with every single person on there.
Right.
Of course, you know that my position as a pastor, my livelihood as a pastor, is I come in peace. You know what I mean? And I see the little fires that go off, and I just kind of stand back because even the YouTubers that no longer talk individually, when they're sick, when they need prayer, they call me. You know, and it's like I try to be that voice of reason, you know, and
standing in the gap.
Exactly, because I don't see myself doing anything doing anything different would not be pleasing unto the Lord for me.
And I just said that on my live last night. I said, you know what? I said a lot of us aren't subscribed to any YouTube church channel. And so I don't know if you know, but I call you the people's pastor. I said, so if you got one church channel you're going to subscribe to, it's going to be the House of Rest in Modesto. If you can't make it here because you're remotely watching, well, hey, you can get it right through the camera. You can get it right through the phone.
And honestly, like the fight was very inspirational, man. Like a lot of good friendships came out of that, and a lot of ripples effect came out of that. And I think that once we got away from continuing to do events, you know, because I didn't go to the fight. I watched it. I tried to support the fight in any way I could. But other events, you know, that I went to, like I did go to the CaliMac meeting, and that was one event that I went to, and it was in a church. And I think having churches involved when we unite and when we talk is important, man, because we got to keep the ball rolling, you know?
Absolutely.
We got to keep the influence of leaderships going. A lot of us are in position to influence, but how are we going to not destroy this, but keep building this? Because this is important, what's going on. You know, this is a time that so many doors have opened up, man. Opened up, friendships. I mean, I met you. I got to go on your show. I met so many other people. I met Paul. I met, you know, all these other YouTubers that I probably would have never watched in my life, bro. And I love watching them, you know. And I think that when we got away from, that's why I think boxing events are important. Not that it has to be a personal thing when you're going to fight. If it is, it has to be or whatever. But to keep it more on charity, to keep it more on not just, it's something to look forward to besides nothing. You know, and that fight was being talked about in Chicago. It was being talked about in heck of places, and other places were talking about that fight. And it was such a positive vibe, and everybody was on a positive tip. And I think once we got away from the community service, the charity service, like you said, God, familia, and cultura. Like we're pulling away a little bit from God, and to make things happen as leaders, God has to be involved, man, because he brings this supernatural peace towards people to come together. And these events matter, man. These boxing things, these things that we need to create, you know, maybe within our own, the Central Valley, what can we do? How can I get involved in my city?
Right.
How can I get involved in my community? How can we build something from Salinas to Modesto and make something positive happen through boxing, through talking, interviews, communicating? You know, I think it's important.
I'm all for that. I mean, most of my life was, 20 years in the gang, 20 years into the negative. I mean, all the negative has pretty much been done, and I'm ashamed of it. I mean, I got to keep it real. And anyone that sticks their chest out, that's why I'm not one of those YouTubers that sticks his chest out. I did time, and I did that, and I said, you know what? Come on. There's nothing to be proud of. I mean, it really was just a waste of time.
Yeah.
But again, I grew up, we're just seeing people. I grew up right down the street from the halfway house. So I'd always see the people always with the bag and, hey, where's Hank and where's Art and this and that. And I would walk them over there. And then I knew there was going to be a party that night because he just got out. And the guy that looked all strong and tough coming out of the pen, in about a couple of weeks, he was wearing green sweats, a purple sweater. He was strung
speed?
out on dope and a 10-speed with the little skinny wheels. and
no tubes.
Yeah, and then this guy goes back to jail, and he has the keys to the tank, and it's like this never-ending cycle, and it's crazy because I see like American Cholo. You were mentioning American Cholo. Sometimes he takes photos with older guys that I guess are still around in his neighborhood, and there is no older guys left from Salinas. They must have all went so hard, either the drugs got them, or they're just lost in the system. You know, so you're either gonna do one of two things. You're either gonna grow older or you're gonna grow up.
Yeah.
And I grew up.
Yeah, we gotta.
And I'm just thankful that when I came home, I made it a mission to try to redeem the time. When I see you, Pastor, I see the definition of redemption.
Yeah.
I see you on everything that you just turned the whole thing around. Now look what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're building God's kingdom.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll wait for that for the next segment, right? We're gonna do it. We're gonna do God's segment is coming up pretty soon. We're gonna talk about God and my encounter with God.
That's right. That's right.
So what's the direction of the channel right now?
The direction of the channel is I want it to get bigger than Mikey. I want it to get bigger than one person. I'm trying to unify the gente. That way we can come together on issues that affect the community. If we have the power and mobilize together in unity, they will know that our vote will either put you in office or take you out of office. I guess it's not a new movement, it's an old one. So that's what I'm trying to push for. And so it's called Chicano Tube, but really we're the largest demographic in California. We make up almost 40%, but we can't unite. We can't unite. There's either one difference or something. You're not Chicano. You're not this. You're Central American. You're that. Same thing prevails even in Mexico. They even divide themselves even in Mexico.
The states or the towns.
Exactly. So that's my goal, is that Chicano Tube, and I'm waiting for the trademark. I felt they're taking like a year and a half on. They take about a year and a half to get the trademark.
Yeah.
When I came up with that vision, my wife was part of that vision right there. The funny thing is when we're not funny, but when we were revamping the studio, she had ordered me one sign, and the first sign that you got me was gonna say what, honey? It was gonna say Chicano Tube, but it didn't arrive, and it was just one of those generic neon signs, the ones they advertise on Facebook all the time, right? And so it didn't arrive on time. And when she said, "How about rebrand the channel?" and we're laying in bed, how about rebrand the channel? It seems like it has a broader reach. It's gonna, because there's a lot of Chicano, IG pages and this and that, and obviously we're a large demographic in this country. We're large, right? And all of a sudden the light went on. I reached out to a designer. We got the design. She's wearing the logo on the shirt. We got the designer, immediately filed a trademark, and I said, what a wonderful idea. That's gonna take it from the Salinas region, now going national and international.
Yeah.
So can I say something really quick? I know they probably can't hear me, but he always would say the slogan on his Salinas report. He would say Chicano to Chicano to.
Yeah,
he would.
I ordered him the neon for.
Or YouTube Landia.
There you go. Those are the trademarks.
He had no idea, but then I get the notification it's not going to arrive till
Yeah.
after. So I told him, honey, I got you this. It was expensive. Don't think I'm not going to get you anything.
Yeah.
Turns out that night I'm like, honey, why don't you call your channel Chicano Tube? And his eyes lit like
My eyes, like SpongeBob came out, and because I saw, it came out like SpongeBob, because I saw expansion, I saw a further reach, and that's where I was going. So I really found myself in the rebranding of the channel.
And you did expand because your guys is doing that dreaming and visualizing affected me. See, my channel birth because in August I was a part of AB 2183, which was the farm workers that were marching from Delano to Sacramento, and I met them in Madera, and I was going through all that, and I was getting the pure culture of that culture of si se puede, si se puede, and I seen it front line, and I was watching you, I was watching these other channels, but when I seen you flip your channel, I was like, whoa. And then I seen Pocho One, shout out to Pocho One. I seen that guy and I go, I'm gonna start a channel. I'm gonna call it Si Se Puede Podcast.
You know, and I got to keep it real on the Salinas report.
Up, bro.
If I didn't have my wife, right? My wife, you know, she grew up opposite of me. She didn't grow up on the streets. She didn't grow up around gangs. She wasn't influenced on none of that. If I didn't have my wife, I probably would have went the direction a lot of YouTubers I was mingling with online, which was talking about that. All the war stories and incarcerated and at 13 when I caught my first case was a shooting, juvenile halls and all. I probably would have went that direction, and I'm so glad I didn't, because I would have regretted those videos that would have been seen as glorification, romanticization. I'm so glad she was the one. That my wife was the one that would have checked me on that. Wait a second. You said don't say that. Don't say this. And for me, again, YouTube was just fun, but now I'm glad I didn't. Because now it rolls into the new brand. And I ended up deleting almost all the old videos anyways.
Did you?
Yeah. I just ended up clearing out the cat. Well, because I didn't want the old studio and the new studio.
Oh, yeah.
But like
I wanted the
David
new
was
studio.
saying,
That looks
like
nice.
Pastor David was saying earlier, you have that one person saying you're better than that, you're smarter than that, you have more to give, you know, and we need those type of compliments. And not to say those channels, you know, people tell their stories of what they know. You know, they talk about their experiences, and it's all power to them, you know. But I mean, luckily you had your wife there to be that person, like Pastor David was saying, that would say, why are you going that route? You're smarter than that. Or why are you going in that direction? You got a little bit more to give, or you could do a little more, you know. So God bless you for encouraging him, you know.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing, like for this channel, because right now we're live on my David Rocha channel, because there's so much more than, well, let me see, that's probably going to sound wrong, but there's more to what I'm about and who I am than just Pastor David. That's what I do, you know. But I'm an artist. I paint. I have done music in the past, and you know what I mean. So that's why I started this David Rocha channel, a little more personal. Like, and and I'm always, just like all of us, when we're putting content, you're just like, okay, what could I do different to make this more interesting? You know, because there's millions of channels. Why should anybody watch yours? You know, opening up every day. Thousands opening up every day. And the whole thing is, like, for instance, I've talked with you. I said, well, first of all, YouTube is eye candy. You got to make it look nice, because there's times where I have seen a really good, let's say, like I'm an aquarium enthusiast. I like aquariums. And I'll watch somebody that's teaching live plants, because I have live plants in my tank. If I hit it and it just looks like a poor iPhone 1, I'm out. You know, the information might have been golden, but we're visual creatures. Visually, it doesn't, you know what I mean? And then I'll go somebody else, and they got just nice cameras and nice lighting, and the audio sounds good. I'm gonna watch that. That's just the reality of it, you know. It is what it is. So I think, like, you rebranding and you're fixing the studio. It looks great, by the way. Thank you. You know, and I think that is a huge plus in content. Like, one of the segments, I haven't even announced it, but I'll say right now, is I'm actually going to review an old song of mine. Breaking news. And then talk about my mindset when I wrote that song and how I see it as a 51-year-old man now. There you go. You know? Yeah. Great. And that's something I'm going to be doing, it's going to be a lot of the darkroom songs, a lot of... I talked to Paul about this, and he's like, you going to do a GUN one? I said, I really don't want to. He goes, you should. He goes, because people need to know where you're at now. You know, and where your mindset was then. So that's something I'm going to do on this channel, actually. Awesome. Stay tuned. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit the share button. I have a question. Go ahead. Phyllis Gonzalez from Broderick, West Sac. She says, ask Mikey, who does he think really won the fight?
Oh, that it's easy because I've had not only an amateur fighting license, but I've also had an officiant license as well, and they're not hard to get. You just have to take some exams, pay $100. So I've judged a lot of fights, and that would have easily been a 10-8 Cholo Trucker fight based on punches. Now, of course, Cholo Trucker was only like 140 pounds, soaking wet with boots on. So the punches didn't have a lot of oomph. I wish I would have, had a little bit of hands-on in his camp. I would have told him to sit down on those punches and would have had more snap. But he did land way more punches. The other individual didn't really train. Matter of fact, he was smoking cigarettes in the back training room. So
I mean, I remember thinking in my mind, I'm like, oh man, if Gunner doesn't do some damage in the first round, Cholo Trucker's gonna take it because he's lighter, he's healthier,
He took it serious. He was showing videos of him sprints. He was running 45s, running up bleachers and stuff like that. So on points, he outpointed him.
If I could give my opinion, I think they both did. They contributed. They both contributed.
Of course.
But Cholo Trucker went in there with broken ribs, man.
Which he didn't tell nobody.
He went in there with broken ribs, bro. And just the respect of that and him not saying nothing and the way he conducted and carried himself and still fought good, man, that gave him the win.
He showed a Cholo Trucker.
He had broken ribs.
Yeah, he showed up to help me. I put a text out in the group text. I said, hey, if anyone's available to help me move some of this stuff.
Oh, I got that text.
You got that text? Yeah.
I didn't help.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
He said it's okay.
He's forgiven. He's forgiven. You know what I mean? But anyways, he showed up. I still didn't even know that he had a fracture. Or it's called a minor. I think it was a minor fracture. Even if it's a minor hair fracture, there's pain there.
Like Gunner got him in a few. I mean, I punched him in that area.
I believe, according to Coach Art, or I don't know if it was Sonny, they said that he was not wanting to come out in the fourth round.
Yeah.
I think he didn't want to get off that stool because the pain was there, and he's thinking, okay, this is for charity. It's just throbbing. It just hurts. And of course, you don't want to fight injured or play any kind of physical combat sport or physical sport injured because
how bad that injury was.
It could be very extended, the injury, if you start with a little small one. So it was he outpointed him. Just to say, he outpointed him.
No, I would agree. Me not being...
It was lackluster. I know it wasn't the most and everyone's in.
I did have fun. And then when Cholo Trucker decides to swim from Alcatraz,
yes,
I was there.
Okay, San Francisco.
I don't know how many swimmers there was.
That's insane, man.
That's crazy.
I don't even like swimming in the ocean.
He went from Alcatraz. He was going to go to that beach. I can't remember the beach right now on the top of my head, but we were waiting because there was a bunch of them, 50, 60 swimmers, and they were showing up, 10 of them, 15, 20, and I'm just like, I think he's dead.
Jeez,
he wasn't showing up.
Holy smoke!
He wasn't showing up, and when I saw him come out, I was
praying.
I was already like, how am I gonna? His wife is there. I'm like, I'm already thinking of something to say. Like I was getting nervous, and I was trying not to show that nervousness. Man, when he showed up, my respect for that man
went through the roof.
Yeah,
went absolutely through the roof. Yeah. No, you know what? He has a heart that's bigger than his body.
That's an Olympic level type of.
He has a huge heart, bigger than his body. So yes,
crazy.
And he's always, his channel has always been very consistent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He has a great heart for the people. He has a great message as well. I know a lot of channels like that.
Yeah.
Like your guys' channels.
So with that, we're gonna end this first part, and we're gonna jump over to the House of Rest YouTube channel. That's the one where we have almost 11,000 subscribers, which has taken 12 years to build. It's hard to build a Christian channel.
Oh yes.
I have gone like our headquarters of Grace International is in Houston.
Okay.
And I remember the lady, I was kind of saying, man, we only got, almost 11,000 subscribers, and the sermons get watched, like it's only like 500 views, and she's like, are you kidding me? She goes, they're like a mega church, and they get like 500 subscribers and 20 views, and she goes, you need to appreciate what you have. She goes, it's hard because nobody's tuning into sermons or Bible studies, you know. So it's been a hard struggle, but at the same time, I love what we do. I get to know the people. I'm sure you get to know certain people that are always on there, so you get to almost know them without knowing them.
Right, in the comment section. Yeah, of course.
Supporters,
yeah, the day oneers.
Yeah.
All the day oneers.
Yeah.
Of course.
But guys, we are going to take a quick 5-10 minute break. I'm gonna, because I got to switch this out and go to that channel, and we're gonna talk about the Lord, you know, and talk about God, talk about all of those things, and you know. But if you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe to this channel.
Yeah.
They're subscribed to yours.
That's right.
And I'll put it in the description box. I'll put
Sure.
it in the comments also.
Okay.
But they could just type up Chicano too.
That's it.
Yeah,
I'm the
and
only
for
one.
yours-
Si se puede podcast.
Si se puede podcast.
That's right. That's
But
right.
I'm gonna put both of your links on the description box, on the comments, and but guys, join us over there. There's a few of you in there. Just go to that channel. We're gonna go live. Just give me a couple minutes to just switch it out.
Yeah.
And any last things on?
No, I appreciate everyone that's in the comments section. Don't forget to do that big 3. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Much more coming from Pastor David Rocha's channel. I appreciate you.
All right. See you guys in a minute. Where's my? I'm still getting used to this thing here. And where is it at? All right. There we go, right there. Bam.